one of the things that blew me away from watching the episode, and again, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for the strength that you're showing right now, talking to us about this, was the fact that you revealed something on air to millions of viewers that you hadn't even told your mom. Like, what was that like, keeping that secret from your loved ones? And like, where was your outlet? Like, did you have an outlet, therapy, counseling, anything? Like, who could you talk to about that?
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the hardest part, was knowing that my mom was gonna, either I had to tell her before this episode aired or she was gonna find out, and in those moments of when that was happening, I didn't have anyone to talk to, because you feel ashamed, you feel dirty, you feel like it's your fault. And then moving forward, I have 2 girlfriends who know about it, and that's it. And so again, I didn't expect to even bring it up in that setting. And I didn't even realize kind of the domino effect of what it's going to have, the impact. And in some ways, it's so just like liberating to take this negative moment and make it such a positive, and like start these conversations and educate people on their resources and know that they are not alone, and that this has happened to so many men and women, but people don't talk about it because they feel ashamed and embarrassed.
Yeah, so many people feel ashamed. What was that domino effect like after the fact that you said, the person who arguably loves you the most in this world, your mother, all of our mothers, like, you didn't tell her because you said you were ashamed? And then what was that domino effect after, when it came to dating, when it came to being intimate with someone physically? Like, how was that for you?
I think for at least 5 years after that, I did not enjoy having sex. Like, I just had this really negative relationship with it. But of course, like, when you're in a relationship, that's important to have this chemistry. And so then it kind of creates, like you said, a domino effect of like, well, he has his needs, I want to give him that. But then you're like forcing it. And then, or when you're not having sex, then he's angry. And it's just like, it's this really just unhealthy thing that you're just trying to get out of. But you're digging this hole deeper and deeper by like forcing it or fighting about it. And, I had to really learn how to have a healthy relationship with sex, but also how to communicate with your partner about the expectations and what sex is, and how to kind of set boundaries for each other.
Question. Were you, I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Katie, I haven't said this before, but I'll say it to you and only you. And if someone else hears it, they hear it. I'm a certified sex coach and certified intimacy coach, and you just hit something that I haven't said pretty much ever. I remember I was in a relationship with my ex, and I came home one day. I was in the Guard at the time. I was in Dallas in the Guard. I came home back to San Antonio, and I walked in the door, and she started crying. And she started crying because she figured that I wanted to have sex, because I haven't seen her in like 4 days. And you just touched my heart when you said he has needs. And the reason I became a certified intimacy and sex coach was because I wanted to learn, because I never want my woman to feel, well, he has needs. Because I want you to know, and every woman to know, bitch, you got needs too, right? You have needs too. I do that to stop myself from crying, but you have needs as well. And that's just you touched me with that one right there. Because I understand that, right? When you're in a relationship with someone, you want to be pleased and you want to please as well. How do you deal with that? How do women just show so much strength? How do you, Katie, show so much strength when you were taken advantage of, yet and still you tell your 2 homegirls, you love your mom to death, but you can't tell your mom because you're her pride and you're her light, right? So I get that, I understand that. So you tell your 2 homegirls that are close to you, but then you try to move on with life, and you try to like almost suppress it. Like, how do you even have sex? Is it more of a rage sex, or is it like, tell me about that. I genuinely want to know. I'm so curious, and I just want to be better myself.
Like how I've progressed over the years?
Yeah, how have you progressed and gotten so to this stage?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it took time, a lot of time, and a lot of failed relationships, a lot of them that were centered around sex being an issue. And that was when I was like, I'm just in this vicious cycle of, you know, failed relationships because of the relationship I have with sex. And so I want to say it was probably within the last 3 years that I finally was very firm in my decisions in terms of like, if I didn't want to have sex, I said no, and I meant it. And I was never going to force myself to do anything for a man that I didn't want to do. And I think that was probably the first step to building this healthy relationship. Because if you start forcing yourself to have sex when you don't want to, then your body, your mind, you start to create this negative association with sex in general, and you're just setting yourself up for failure. And so for me, the first step that I had to do was not try to please my man if it was something that I didn't want to do mentally or physically in that moment.
But how do you do that though? What is that? What is the vehicle to get you to that strength that you now hold? Like, is it strictly just time, or is it talking to the homies, or like what was the thing? Was it a book that you read, a podcast that you listened to, you know, something that just came over you one day and said, "Fuck it"? Like,
I mean, yeah, honestly, just time, you know, time. And the older you get, and the more failed relationships you have, you really have to start digging deeper and deeper. You know, in your early 20s, you're like, it's whatever. And then you hit like 25 and you're like, okay, what's happening? And then all of a sudden you're like 27, 28, 29. You're like, I need to figure my shit out. I need to figure out what's wrong, you know? And so there's not like a book that I read or like some documentary I watch. It's just like self-reflection. You know, and I think that happens especially in these last years of the last year of the pandemic, is people are reflecting a lot on their lives and where they're at and what they need to do to make it better. And so for me, it took 10 years of self-reflection and growth to figure out how to have a healthy relationship with myself, with sex, with, you know, my future partner.